So good morning, everyone, and thanks for being here. My name is JC Cortez, and I'm the Director of Training and Development here at Synergia's Metropolitan Parent Center. Thank you for joining us today for our presentation with our four-part series with the Department of Education on specialized education in special education here in the city. Today we are presenting on the Asd Nest and Horizon programs, and we are joined by both the Director, Kate Dolan-Cheney, as well as the Senior Director of Special Ed in the Department of Education, Michelle Netzler. Before we begin, I just want to cover a few housekeeping notes, and then I'll introduce our presenters. But yes, today we are broadcasting this live via Facebook Live. So thank you for all of you joining us on Facebook. Good to see you. And please, if you have any questions on Facebook, please place them in the comments section. We'll be monitoring those throughout the presentation. Also, we are recording this presentation and we will share the PowerPoint in a follow-up email after this presentation, usually within a couple of days, just to make sure we can tie up all and share all the resources that have been provided during the presentation. But yes, it will be shared with you. We encourage questions at any time. However, with case-specific questions, such as my child or in this certain situation, if it gets really specific, we ask that you direct those questions directly to the Department of Education so that they can answer them best. Every case is case-specific, but we definitely want to hear your questions. And for the sake of privacy, we also want to reserve that, as this is a public forum and being shared on Facebook and the internet. Yes, thank you so much for joining us today for our four-part series on specialized education within special education here in New York City. A few words on Synergia. Synergia is a multi-service agency located in Manhattan that's been supporting New Yorkers for over 40 years and their families and their family members and loved ones with disabilities. We offer a rich source of information and training tailored for parents, including parents whose primary language is not English or who they themselves have special training needs. We help them participate more effectively in their children's education and development, and we partner with professionals and policymakers to improve outcomes for all children with disabilities. Synergia, which is Spanish for synergy, is one of New York City's 3 federally funded parent centers, and we are committed to serving people with disabilities and their families with an added focus on communities of color and the economically disadvantaged. Synergia creates innovative programs ranging from transitional housing for homeless families who have children with disabilities to an after-school arts program that we do in partnership with the Guggenheim Museum. We also do an integrated transition program. We are part of Project Shine, which is a network of partners that are working to create innovative tools for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities across the city. And we also provide parenting and education advocacy training for parents of children with disabilities. As I mentioned today we are covering the DOE's Asd Nest and Horizon program. So we are delighted to be joined today by our partners at the DOE, Kate Dolan-Cheney, Director of the Asd Programs for the New York City Department of Education, and Michelle Netzler, the Senior Director of Specialized Programs, which includes the ACES, ASD, and BSE, the Bilingual Special Education programs from the Special Education Office within the Division of Specialized Instruction and Student Support. Thank you here for being here, ladies. We're absolutely happy you can join us today, and welcome to Synergia.
Thank you so much, JC. We're really excited to be here. I'm going to speak for Michelle. This is one of our favorite PDs to work with, presenting to the Synergia family. And today we're going to talk about the Asd Nest and Horizon programs. So I'm just going to quickly go through the agenda. So part of what we're going to learn today is we're going to learn about part 1. It would be about what is autism. The second part about that would be how will an Asd program support my child with autism? In our second part, we're going to do the overview of the Asd program application process, what parents need to know. We know that we always have questions as parents, and we want to always know that we have the information at our ready. So I think the first piece we're just going to start talking about is the specialized programs for students with autism, or the autism spectrum disorders, or ASD. There are students in autism with autism in all DOE settings, which would be an example of general education, ICT, special classes, and District 75. The DOE recognizes that some students with autism benefit from a specially designed program with a developed model of support and services. These specialized programs are often offered in districts 1 through 32 or community schools. The two specialized programs that we're going to be talking about that service students with autism today are the Asd Nest Program, which is an ICT model, which is actually, if people are, just to say it, to name it, it's an integrated co-teaching model, meaning that there are two teachers, a special education teacher and a general education teacher. The Nest classrooms also have a reduced class size. That will increase as students mature through the programs. Then we're also going to talk about the Asd Horizon Program, which is a special class in a community school. It's an 8-to-1-to-1 small class option with a special education teacher and a programmatic paraprofessional. So we're going to talk about what is autism. Part of what we want to do is really frame about what students with autism need. And according to New York State Department of Education, autism is a developmental disability significantly affecting verbal and nonverbal communication and social interactions. Students with autism, as we know, have very unique abilities and needs, which require special considerations in designing and implementing and evaluating their educational programs. One thing I think we always want to talk about is students with autism sometimes need specialized supports and sometimes they don't. We also want to know about their unique abilities. Many of our students have amazing memories and things of those nature, and we want to celebrate autism in that regard, looking at some of the challenges that we could see, but also the celebration of their very unique abilities and strengths. So I think part of what we want to do now is we want to talk about our profile. So in the Asd programs, as we said before, we have two programs. One is the Asd Nest and one is the Asd Horizon. These are both District 1 through 32 schools, programs that are in District 1 through 32 schools. Students that are applying to the program need to meet the New York State Department of Education diagnostic criteria for autism. So let's start with the Nest program. The Nest program supports students in an integrated co-teaching classroom. ICT classrooms have two teachers, a special education teacher and a general education teacher. Students in an ICT, we will also see students with an IEP and also students that have no IEP. So that's part of the integrated co-teaching. Now we're going to review the profile of students who are well supported in the Asd Nest program. When we at the Asd programs review information, we're interested in learning about a student's cognitive abilities, like with cognition or intelligence. We also want to know about their academic or instructional or achievement skills. That's really about what they're doing in school. What does that look like? We also want to know about their language capabilities, understanding how they're communicating, where they're communicating, what does that look like? Their social functioning skills, and also their behavioral needs. This information helps us to guide decision-making in which Asd program might be the appropriate level of support for your child. So in the area for the Nest program, if we're going to look on the left-hand side, it's in the middle, we're going to look at in the area of cognition or intelligence. Students who are well supported in the Nest program are students that have average to high average IQs. In the area of academics, these are students who are well supported in Nest, often have academic skills on or above grade level. Students are able to work independently in small groups with limited support. These are students that are able to follow the rules of the classroom while also understanding verbal directions. In the area of language, students who are well supported in the Nest program are students who have a strong receptive and expressive language skills. And their primary challenge is using their language appropriately in social settings. That would mean students who are struggling using their language in large groups or with peers. These are students that might have very, very strong communication skills in specific spaces or contexts, but then have difficulty generalizing it to a social situation. So with the students in the Nest program, it's a very unique profile. Most students with autism often have challenges around receptive and expressive language and might need more support than the Nest program can provide. But with students who have this profile, which means very high receptive and expressive language with just challenges around social communication, the Nest program is often a good level of support. In the area of social functioning, students who are well supported in Nest are students who have mild to moderate differences in social communication. This can be characterized by having difficulty interacting or playing with peers or adults in different situations. A student might be able to do one task in one situation but has difficulty generalizing it to another. Students might also have challenges around self-regulation and cognitive flexibility. Some of our students in the Nest program are certainly rule followers. They benefit from structures and routines. Also, the program is really set up to then help support students in the cognitive flexibility and also in self-regulation strategies. The last thing we look at for students in regard to their behavior in the Nest program is looking at students who have mild behavioral challenges that are related to autism. I think the piece that we always want to talk about here is students with autism often have behaviors. What we look at in the ASD programs is really understanding what the behavior is happening. Is this behavior serving a function? Is it serving a communication intent? What we always look at is what behavior, when we're looking at behavior, figuring out and drilling down to find out exactly what the student might be using that behavior to get. So I think the next thing we're going to, yeah.
Kate, sorry to interrupt you. Let me just pause really quick. We're having some difficulties with hearing the Spanish translation. Okay. I just want to make sure that we connect with the interpreter to ensure that we can try and fix that. All right, Kate, go ahead and continue. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. So next we're going to review and talk about the Asd Horizon program and the profile for students that are well supported in that program. This information is on the right-hand side of this slide. Again, the areas, what we look at when we're reviewing applications is we want to understand students' abilities. Always our intention in the Asd programs is to place a child into the appropriate level of support from the beginning. Part of what we want to do is really looking at a child holistically. We look at all of these areas in regard to cognition, instruction and achievement, language, social functioning, and behavior. We get this information in many, many ways, but right now we're just going to talk about the criteria for the program and students who are well supported in it. So for the Horizon program in the area of cognition or academics, students who are well supported in Horizon are students who have below average to average IQs. These are students in regard to their academic and instruction are students who have academic skills that are on or approaching grade level. Horizon students who benefit from instruction based upon the oftentimes benefit on the instruction based upon the principles of ABA. And students are able to work independently for a few minutes at a time and can follow multi-step directions with support. So in that regard, we're looking at students who are well supported in regard to their cognition would be below average to average IQs. And also for students in regard to their achievement or academics, we're going to look at students who are on or approaching grade level. In the area of language development for students who are in the Horizon program, students who are well supported are students who have some challenges around expressive and receptive language skills. These students can typically communicate their wants and needs in sentences or short sentences or phrases. They also can respond to WH questions. Students who are applying to Horizon in upper grades generally have language skills that are close to their grade level peers. And for younger students, we might see some echolalia. In the area of social functioning, students who are well supported in the Horizon program are students who need more support to interact with their peers. They often engage in activities by themselves, or they prefer those tasks and need some support and priming and strategies to then use their, to integrate into a social situation with peers. In the area of behavior, we're always looking at what this looks like. Again, what we talk about in both Asd programs around behavior. We want to understand what the function of the behavior is, and that comes through lots of research, lots of review that my team does. Students who are well supported in Horizon are students that have mild to moderate behavioral challenges that are related to autism. These are this information is definitely gotten through conversations with teams in the clinical review of information, conversations with moms and dads and parent and caregivers. This is the way we can often understand what behavior is and how we can best support it if a child comes into the program.
Kate, sorry, can you just slow down just a little bit for the interpreter?
Yes.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready, sorry.
Oh. So we're going to look at right now, take a very deep look at the Asd Nest Program. So the Asd Nest Program is a reduced class ICT, meaning that students have 2 teachers, a special education teacher and a general education teacher. All of the staff that work within in the Nest program all have pre-service and ongoing professional development on strategies and supports for students with autism. One thing we pride ourselves on with both Nest and Horizon is the ongoing professional development for our students. We really want to make sure that teachers are consistently learning. They become lifelong learners in regard to how do we support our students with autism. And this commitment is not only shared through our program partner, NYU, it's also shared by the building administration and the teachers who are working and support staff who are working within them. One of the things we're going to talk about is that we think about the classroom as a therapeutic environment. Not meaning that this is a sterile environment with no distractions. We want to be mindful about what a Nest or Horizon classroom looks like. We want to be aware of the sensory needs that some of our students have. We want to consider having clearly defined spaces, having structures and routines that are clearly labeled and clearly identified by our students. The other piece that we want to really talk about that's a real piece to the social development, to the children's social development within the Nest program is SDI, or social development intervention. This is a very unique piece to the Nest program. SDI is a program that is it's a social skills are worked on in collaboration from the speech pathologist and the classroom teachers. It's a programmatic mandate where teachers are participating, and the Nest students are then working in a very collaborative fashion on how to support their social communication skills. I think that this is a really unique piece to the Nest program. SDI is one of those areas that really works on that social communication. For the Asd Nest program, we also just want to highlight that the NYU Nest Support Project is our program partner for this program. We work with them collaboratively on supporting not only the teachers in regard to and other staff in regard to the professional development, but we also work collaboratively with NYU in regard to supporting the teachers and classroom supports, and also the administrators who have the building. The other piece that we do have is that NYU does have instructional coaches that will go into a Nest classroom to help support teachers and students. So the next program we were going to really dive into right now is the Asd Horizon Program. The Horizon Program, as I said before, is an 8-to-1-to-1 small class option for students that have an educational classification of autism. The Horizon Classroom utilizes the same grade level curricula that is used in the same general education and ICT classrooms. The Horizon Program is an academic program. The classes utilizes the same curriculum, the same reading books, the same math books that are being used in, say, a 2nd or 3rd grade classroom. Our Horizon teachers are working collaboratively with not only the Horizon team within their building, they're also working very closely with their grade leaders. So they're working on implementing the curriculum that is at the grade level for their students. Again, we're going to talk about the classroom teachers and the programmatic paraprofessionals and our commitment to professional learning and pre-service training and ongoing professional development. Just like in Nest, people who are working within the Horizon program are teachers, paraprofessionals, speech pathologists, guidance counselors, administrators, physical therapists, occupational therapists. are all folks that would be eligible and are receiving professional development from the Central ASD Programs team. The other piece that I want to name also is that in the Asd Horizon program, we have Horizon instructional coaches. The coaches visit programs weekly to help support the teachers, to provide consistent coaching and professional development for the teachers and all staff within the building. They often come in to have suggestions around behavior, social and emotional, and also academic supports. The last thing I want to talk about with the Horizon program is that Rethink is an online resource that is available to Asd Horizon programs. And one thing that I just skipped over that I'm noticing is that we're talking about the Asd Horizon social curriculum. And this is something we're super proud of. It was developed to support the social communication for Horizon students. The social curriculum is delivered through a weekly group speech mandate. So all of the Horizon students participate in this one time a week speech session inside the Horizon classroom, with the Horizon teacher and paraprofessional remaining in the classroom to help support. The rationale for having the social curriculum sessions take place in the classroom is so that, and with the teachers and paras supporting it, is that we want to work on social communication in a context of the classroom. As we do in Nest with the therapeutic classroom, we consider the Horizon program also to be a therapeutic environment, and working and practicing our social communication skills within the classroom that you are spending most of your day is a really beneficial piece to this. We want to think about teaching social skills in context, thinking about things that we're learning only in the therapy room often don't transfer into the classroom. What we've done with the Horizon program is really infuse it with having the teacher and the paraprofessional there to support the social communication intents of the students. So I'm going to actually move on, and we're going to now talk about the ASD application and placement process. And Michelle Metzler is going to take over this portion.
Great. Thanks so much, Kate. Really appreciate the overview that you provided. And I want to start with the Asd Programs application and placement process. This part is just a high-level overview, 4 takeaways from the application process. I also want to note that I did see one of the questions in the chat, which was if you've previously applied and you've lost communication or not received a response from us, we may not have received your application. So please email asdprograms@schools.nyc.gov so we can follow up with you individually. This was also another question I saw in the chat, which is the application. Students apply to both Asd programs by submitting one application. The application process is centralized. You submit it to Asd, the central Asd team. Our team reviews all of the relevant information available to us to make a decision on whether the Asd Nest or Asd Horizon program will offer the appropriate level of supports for the applicant. What we may do is conduct an observation of your child in their current academic setting. Some of you may be aware that we've adjusted this process in response to the pandemic. And we are working towards bringing back our observations being mindful of health and safety guidelines. So the other thing that we often get is whether or not you can visit an Asd program. So after we've gone through the application process, families are invited to visit an Asd program school before accepting the Asd offer. Right now, that could be virtually or it may be in person. Again, we're always being mindful of the health and safety guidelines. So let's move on to the next slide and take a little bit of a deeper dive here. Thanks, Kate. So if you're interested in applying to an ASD program, start by talking to your child's current school, their teachers, related service providers, IEP team. They will be able to provide you with some information, and you complete the application with as much information as you have at the time if you want to apply to programs after you've considered it and discussed with the IEP team. Of course, you can always reach out to us throughout this process for additional support. So step one is learn more about ASD programs before you apply. And you're doing that right now. You're here, you're learning about ASD programs. Hopefully this is providing you with some of the information that you're looking for to determine if you want to apply to programs. So great, thanks, Kate. After you've considered and discussed whether you want to apply, you submit it to ASD Programs at schools.nyc.gov. So if there's one thing you're going to walk away from during this presentation, it's how to get in contact with us. And please do not hesitate to reach out. Our team will contact you back. So once we've received your application, you will receive an email that says that we've received it. And then someone from the central ASD team will contact you to discuss the application process to learn more about your child and what the next steps may be. Most of this information, actually all of this information that we are providing today is available on the DOE website. If you go to the website and you search specialized programs, all of this information will come up, including the link to the applications and the family guide. So let's think about what we're doing. We're reviewing the application, and we're considering whether or not the programs are the right support for your child. So our central ASD team will review all the information available in CSIS, such as previous IEPs, evaluations, any testing, observations that have happened, progress reports, academics. Our team is also going to speak with you to hear more about your thoughts about the program and what you know about your child's needs academically, behaviorally, socially, and emotionally. We're going to talk to your child's teachers, related service providers. If the child is a turning 5, a child who's entering kindergarten, we also may speak with the CA. We are also going to be in contact with the IEP team or the school or the individual who supported you in submitting the application. We want to make sure that you also are letting them know that you've submitted an ASD application. We want to encourage communication between the IEP team, your child's school, and the ASD application process. There are times when we may need more information and we may work with you to request those additional evaluations through the IEP team and the IEP process. Sometimes, for example, we may need updated testing if it's outdated, or if we need a speech evaluation. But again, most of the time students are applying with information and testing already conducted. We use the information available for the IEP process through the IEP process. There is no outside testing required to submit an application. So thinking about the admissions process into a program. Again, we're going to review the data that includes the evaluations, all of the information we've gathered from interviews. And if at that time it's believed that we can support your child in an ASD program, we may schedule an observation. We may schedule it centrally with our team or with the program school team or together. Again, I know that this is a question that's come up. In response to the pandemic, we did not have observations. We did not conduct them due to health and safety guidelines. We also understand that students are impacted by the pandemic, each uniquely and under each family's circumstances. So we wanted to be mindful of that when we're looking at observations. If we're moving forward with an offer to an ASD program after we've gone through the review process, the ASD team program, our central team, will reach out to you and connect you with the correct person at the ASD program school. We will arrange a visit in person or virtual, depending on the health and safety guidelines at the time. And we're going to support you to learn more about that individual school at the time. Also, I want to just make sure that in addition to the school connection, you will have a connection on our central ASD team. Our work is split into boroughs typically, so our borough managers and clinicians work in a borough team. You will have a point person, and again, if you lose contact with that person, please reach out to us and we'll reconnect you. So after you've visited and you've accepted the ASD program offer, our team will support with connecting you with the correct folks at the program school for registration. That may be the same person for the visit. It may be someone else. We'll also work with the transfer or through the transfer process and work with the IEP team in the school to reflect the ASD program. If students require different or more intensive supports than an ASD program, we're going to call you and discuss that with you. We're also going to let the IEP team know, or the folks at the school that you've been working with, the determination of the application. At any time, if circumstances change and you have new information, we encourage you to reapply and reach out to us. All right, so some final thoughts. Kate mentioned this earlier, and I want to make sure that we touch on this. Eligibility and LRE, or least restrictive environment, not all students need a specialized program. She said that from the outset. There are many students who are receiving supports in their current setting, and they're able to access instruction and have meaningful engagement. So we want to always consider that when we're thinking about a specialized program. And I've mentioned this numerous times. If you need to reach out to us throughout this process, our email address is asdprograms@schools.nyc.gov. You can reach Kate and I through that. You can reach the entire team. So we will make sure to respond to your emails when we hear from you. So that concludes our presentation. I know there might be some questions. Oh, I recognize that I wanted to stop when we were thinking about the application process. I also want to talk about timeline. Sometimes folks want to know about the timeline, and it really depends on when you're applying. For example, students entering kindergarten may apply right now, but they're entering kindergarten in September. So we work with the Turning 5 process, or that IEP process for entering kindergarten, and we align our offers with that process, meaning when testing and information is available, we are reviewing that through the IEP process, and then offers come out when students are receiving offers in the late spring and early summer. For middle and high school timelines, so if your child is not currently in an ASD program, this is the application process you use, what I just described. If your child is in a program currently, they will be able to rank their ASD Nest or Asd Horizon choices on the middle or high school application process. So for current students, you'll be able to rank those within your choices on your application. For new students, please submit an application, and then we align our offers to the same timeline as offers are sent to students for middle and high school. All right, JC, do we have some questions that you would like for Kate and I to answer?
Do I ever?
Okay.
There are several questions, and I just want to remind everyone that if they are very case specific, it'd probably be best to contact the ASD office at asdprograms@schools.nyc.gov. I will read every question, but I will leave it up to our presenters today if they wish to answer that or if they think it's best for you to contact them. Just so that we give everyone a fair shot and we understand what is the pressing concern. So I appreciate your patience, everyone. I apologize if we can't answer every question to your satisfaction today, but please reach out to the ASD office where they will be in touch with you, as they have said over and over in this presentation. But thank you both for your presentation. It's a lot of information, and looking at it side by side, it's still a lot of information. So yeah, so I understand if we're gonna have a lot of questions here. I'm just gonna go in order how I see them in the Q&A, and then we'll go through the chat. All right, everyone? So just bear with me. If we already got an ASD diagnosis from our developmental pediatrician via ADOS during the past month, will the Department of Education do another diagnostic assessment next spring for ASD program application?
Not for the application, and it's very unlikely that it wouldn't be done through the IEP process. That's a conversation to have with the IEP team, but we would not conduct another.
All right. When the time comes, can you please describe in detail the student profile for Horizon, specifically when it comes to expressive language and toileting?
So we did go over the profile. Kate did that early. I think Kate can talk a little bit more about language if you'd like, but it's also student specific. So we want to make sure that the takeaway isn't we said this, and if a student checks the box, then yes, and if the student checks the box, then no, because students are much more complex than one diagnostic tool, right? So we want to think about that. For toileting, we have students who enter the programming needing toileting support. So that is not, it does not preclude a student from being in an ASD program. Kate, do you have anything you want to add about expressive?
No, I think you covered it. I think, students, just to reiterate, it's, in academic programs, students have the ability to use sentences, respond to WH questions with some supports, not every WH question, but students are able to communicate their wants and needs expressively, certainly for kindergarten students or first grade students.
I just want to also touch on some of our students in the program do use assistive tech. And that is sometimes a confusion point. So want to make sure that communication is looked at in a number of different ways.
We have another question. My son is nonverbal and has mild behavior. Would he fit for this program?
So that would be an area where I would encourage you to reach out to us. Because we do understand that behavior is a form of communication, and we want to, and the programs move to understand the behaviors, but I am not sure what behaviors we're talking about, and we would really want to think about specifically. We also understand that sometimes students are coming from places that there aren't specific supports for autism, and then we may see different behaviors in that setting. So we want to always think about our lens is where's the child and what support are they receiving currently when we're looking at the application process.
Thank you. Can a child with one-to-one paraprofessional participate in the Horizon program? If they wander or run away, can they be accepted in this program? Would moderate behavior be accepted in the Horizon program? I believe we saw that also in the chat up here too.
So it depends on the individual student. That would be an area that we would want to review. I mean, things to consider. If a student is leaving the classroom as an escape behavior to escape demands or tasks or non-preferred activity in the class, that's something we consider. We have students who may enter the program with a paraprofessional, but our goal is to reduce the need for a paraprofessional. The program is also designed in a smaller class setting, thinking about that therapeutic environment, reducing stimuli in the classroom so that some of the reasons that students would need paraprofessional support in other larger classrooms are eliminated, and we can support them in this classroom without a paraprofessional. But we would really like the opportunity to speak specifically about that child. So if you haven't applied, please apply.
Thank you. Yes, would you accept a private neuropsychology evaluation that used Wechsler Preschool and Primary Scale of Intelligence, WPPSI-4, and Kaufman Test of Educational Achievement, KTEAA-3 test, if done within the last 12 months?
Yes, we would. Part of what we want to talk about here is students with neuropsychs. We're happy to review any information that comes from a private provider. That being said, you do not have to have a neuropsych to apply to the programs. All of the testing can be secured in the T5 process through the Turning 5 transition team, or if a student's applying over in an upper grade, we can work with the IEP team to get exactly the same testing that could be done by the neuropsychologist. So I want to just really reassure families that we want to encourage families to use the IEP teams in their school or the Turning 5 team. They can give us all of the information that we would use to make a clinical determination, but also make sure that that child can get the testing in the easiest, fastest way possible.
Thank you. Also, will you still have the local ICT psychologist do an evaluation in January, February of 2022 if we had a neuropsychology evaluation in the last 12 months?
So evaluations during the IEP process are determined by the IEP team. So if you share the neuropsych with the IEP team, you can discuss that with them. Perfect.
All right. How often do the NYU instructional coaches go into the classroom, or does it vary on based on need? I believe you said they go in weekly, correct?
That's with the Asd Horizon Program.
Okay.
So NYU, yeah, go.
No, go ahead, Kate.
So NYU instructional support works on need basis. Also, they're conducting a ton of professional development to help support teachers in the implementation of the Nest supports for their students. But it is not weekly.
I just want to add that the Nest support structure is pre-service training and ongoing training by discipline, meaning that social workers and teachers and speech providers have ongoing training and seminars throughout the year, and they're structured, as well as some of our Asd Nest programs develop and create a position for an internal Asd Nest coach at that school. And that person has additional training as well as expertise in supporting students with autism. So they build in some of that coaching support for the Nest. Again, the structure for training has been around for a while, and it's very robust in supporting our Nest program schools.
We have two questions, and this is an interesting question. How do you decide which Nest or Horizon school to offer a child? Is it based on location? What if there's a Nest Horizon near us? Can we put that as an option so you're aware of our preference? And then a different guest, Tindi, asked, is district or borough considered when making placements? Do you attempt to place students in a program closest to home?
That's the answer to the question. We attempt to place students closest to their home. Yes. So what we do is we get the application, We review it, we see where we have an open seat, and we offer the closest one to where the student resides.
And can they list the school that's closest to them as an option, or are you already aware of that?
We're going to look at their address. There is
Mhm.
nothing to prevent a family from putting a desired school on their application. However, it will be based on seat availability and their proximity to that school.
Okay. And what kind of evaluations need to be submitted if they are entering kindergarten and want to apply for Nest or Horizon?
So you should speak with your IEP team and let them know that the ASD, that you've submitted an ASD application. Typically, we need a full psycho ed and an autism measure. The IEP team will support you through talking about the evaluations that are needed, but those are the two things. Because students in an ASD program are eligible for an educational classification of autism. So we're looking to see if an autism measure has been conducted.
Great, thank you. Can you share the results of or progress you have seen in students in the Horizon program? Thank you in advance.
So student progress is monitored through the IEP process, and they have goals aligned to, for example, speech goals aligned to pragmatics and social communication. And it's really individual to the student. I'm trying to think about how to frame this. It depends on what the student's needs are coming in, and it's so individual. We see students making gains in attentional, right? Staying on task. We see social communication goals and social interaction increase through the program because we're thinking about that classroom being a therapeutic environment. That means that we're bringing those social skills into the classroom, right? And the teachers and the paraprofessionals in the classroom are working with students throughout the day. So we're thinking about perspective taking, flexibility, cognitive flexibility. There are so many things that individual students work on. I'm sure that every parent would say something a little differently about their child and what they've gained from the program. Kate, do you have anything you want to add?
I echo everything you just said. I think part of when the program is working, we'll see students have inclusion opportunities in Horizon into larger classrooms with support. We have students when they move on to high school are taking electives that are of interest to them. So what we're noticing within the program and from the feedback with families is that the Horizon program is supporting our students to make not only the academic and social emotional, but also the behavioral and social communication skills. And that's supporting them throughout their journey through the Horizon program.
Here's a question, and curious because we're going to have AIMS here next week to discuss the AIMS program, which is a part of the District 75 office. But one of the questions here is, what's the difference between an Asd Nest program and a District 75 school with ABA modality? How is the AIMS program also different from the Nest curriculum?
So that's a couple things. I think we're all really good at talking about the programs that we work in every day and intimately. I don't want to speak for AIMS. You may want to pose that to the AIMS team. Our Nest program is an ICT class. So as Kate said, that class has two teachers, a general education and a special education teacher, as well as students with and without IEPs. In District 75, the supports are typically more intensive, and all of the students have an IEP in those classrooms. For the curriculum, You know, in our ASD Nest and Horizon programs, we are following the grade level curriculum with appropriate differentiation and modification. Some students in District 75 may be participating in alternate assessment, maybe not all of them, but some of them. All of our students in ASD programs are participating in standard assessments.
Okay.
But I'm sure that, I'm not sure who's presenting, but Mark and his team from Ames will be able to expand on that. So you should definitely ask that question again.
Yes, and Mark and his team will be here. So definitely come next week for questions on Ames. There was a question earlier about ACEs. Our ACEs event was rescheduled to January 11th at 10:30. So please join us on January 11th if you have questions about the ACEs program. We're not reviewing that today. Quick question. So Nest has ASD students and non-ASD students, to be clear?
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct. All right. And the deadline for the 2022-23 school year, the application deadline, do you have one yet?
You know what, that's a really good question, and I should have covered that. So applications are accepted on a rolling basis at any time. So you could apply for today for next year. You can apply in August or September. If you want your child to start at the first day of school, although that day hasn't been announced yet, I believe. But if you want your child to start the first day of school, the sooner we get your application, the better, so that we can complete the review process. So before the end of the school year would be ideal, but there isn't a deadline. If your circumstances change and you decide you want to apply, you should apply.
Great. And let me rephrase this. When should we expect to hear from the Central ASD team after submitting an application? I know I've seen this in the chat as well.
So you should receive an email in 1 to 3 business days after submitting an application, and the email will acknowledge that we've received the application. And then within about a week from that timeline, you should have a call. It may take a little bit longer if we're not in school because folks aren't here. So it could take up to 2 weeks to get a call from someone. If you've submitted an application and you haven't heard from anyone, please email asdprograms@schools.nyc.gov because we want to follow up on that application and make sure that we're connecting you with the right folks on our team.
Great, thank you. And the Nest program is integrated. Can you share what the ratio is in terms of that integration?
Sure.
Sure, I have.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Kate.
Oh.
Or
Sure. Do you want to? Oh, sorry. So it's a reduced class size ICT, meaning that with the 2 teachers, so for kindergarten, we have generally 4 ASD students and 8 general education students. So it would mean a max of 12. These are guidelines. Sometimes we might see some fluctuations with this across boroughs or with specific schools. So these are also just guidance recommendations and not specific adherence to, but we like to see this happening. For grades 1 to 3, no more than 16 kids, and 4 or 5 students with ASD in those sections. For grades 4 to 5, no more than 20 students, and 4 to 5 students with ASD classifications. And for grades 6 to 8, we're up to 25 students. So it's a larger classroom. The piece of this is we want to make sure students are getting a very robust inclusion opportunity. So there will be more students added as we go along. And in middle school, there would be 5 students in the Nest cohort. For grades 9 to 12, there's no more than 31 students, and there would be 6 students with a classification of autism.
So our goal, so one of the goals with increasing the class size is to ensure that students have the opportunity to prepare for whatever their post-secondary options are, whatever they decide, career, or if they're going to college or a college program where they may be in bigger class sizes. So some of the focus as students get older in middle and high school is really to think about building those independence skills, but also self-efficacy and self-advocacy, so that students are understanding what they need to be successful in different environments. And that is why we're increasing the class size in the Asd Nest program as students get older, or one of the reasons. The Horizon program, as Kate mentioned earlier, remains a special class, and there are 8 students in that class with 1 teacher, 1 paraprofessional. However, as Kate mentioned before, we really start to think about when inclusion opportunities are appropriate for that student, and they go into ICT classes at their current school with their ASD supports, right? So the idea is that at the school that they're attending, that folks maybe in their ICT class have received some training, or that there will be somebody who can make sure that those supports that have been successful for the student continue in the ICT class.
That was a lot.
Sorry.
No. All right. Are there more than 1 schools that can be offered in a Nest program once accepted?
We usually make 1 offer. I think that's
Okay.
the answer. 1 offer.
Okay.
I'm not sure if yeah.
I think one of the things, like, just to clarify, is that when we apply to the programs, we apply to the programs in general and not to a specific school within it. Part of what our team, as Michelle said before, is when we're reviewing applications, we want to advantage and put students as close to their home as possible. We know that many of our students have to travel to schools via specialized transportation, which is another aspect of coming into a specialized program, but also that placing them in the school that's closest to their home. So generally that offer is to that school that has the program closest to their home.
Okay. I believe you answered this already, but is in-person observation happening this year?
Oh, hopefully we would like it to. I mean, we are really responding to any of the guidelines and fluctuations in related to the pandemic. So we have started observations, and we plan to continue them, provided we can do so safely.
All right. And for Nest or Horizon, are these 10-month or 12-month IEP programs?
So they're 10-month programs with 12-month related services in kindergarten through 5th grade.
And is there a place on the DOE website where we can find a list of the schools that offer these programs? It seems like mission impossible to find it online. And if it's not online, is it possible for you to share a list? Because parents are right now looking for open houses as well.
So a couple things. So I'm not aware of a list, and I am not sure how many kindergarten open houses are happening. We have shared lists before. We can certainly share lists. The concern is that families will, it's a centralized application process. So you're welcome to go to any schools that have a program. And we are making placements based on where families live. We want to make sure that students are not spending a great deal of time traveling to schools, but also they are able to remain in their community where they can make social connections with other families and students.
Okay. Let's see.
Somebody just said that my school has the Nest and Horizon programs. You can search my schools for Nest and Horizon programs for middle and high school.
Okay, yes, I see that. And above that, there was a question, if you could clarify. So a 10-month program with 12-month related services, so only therapies during the summer, but no classroom?
So actually, I wanted to go back to that because that was a
Mhm.
really good question. So an IEP team can determine that a student may need summer school support services. So being in an Asd Nest or Horizon program doesn't preclude you from summer services. The design of the Asd summer program is to have students work on social and pragmatic communication over the summer. So trained teachers and providers facilitate that for typically 4 weeks over the summer, 4 days per week for our students who are currently in the program. But again, if students need academic support, that is actually determined by the IEP team and not our team.
Gotcha. Okay. Here's a question, and this again goes to location. What if the school closest to my home is not preferred? Oftentimes the school closest is not the best school or best facilities. Does your program take desired schools into consideration?
We can. I think, as Kate said before, and we want to always think about transportation. If there is a school close to the family's home, we really want to consider that. I know that families have preferences, and we definitely want to hear those when we're speaking with the families. So we do take those into consideration.
All right. I'm going to go through the chat questions. That was just out of the Q&A. I'm going to take a break from the Q&A questions just to make sure we haven't skipped over any important questions in the chat, and then we'll come back to Q&A. What does mild to moderate behavioral challenges related to autism mean?
That is a good question. Kate, I don't know if you want to talk about some behaviors, but I also want to think about, we really look at individual students because sometimes a student who's in an environment that maybe doesn't understand autism in the same way a specialized program does, we may see some behaviors. You know, students entering our program sometimes do have an FBA or a BIP, and sometimes those things are related to behaviors related to autism, and our programs address those, and we see a reduction in those behaviors. So it's some of the things I mentioned before. We could think about an escape behavior, no work production, frustration in maybe raising your voice. It depends on the student. You know, I don't want to go and say these are the behaviors that are acceptable and these are the behaviors that aren't acceptable, because it depends on the unique needs of the student. Children are much more complex than just you know, behaviors that I'm going to name right now. We would, if you believe that by the description of the programs that we talked about today, your child could benefit from the supports, then we would love for you to apply, so we have the opportunity to learn more about your child.
And just given your answer, I'm just curious if it changes, but is it possible to give an example of behavioral differences for a Nest student versus a Horizon student?
My answer isn't going to change, Kate.
Okay.
Kate, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I agree. I think that this is a really specific, when our team does a clinical review, we're looking for information. We're looking to get information on a child. We never are making just judgments. Always, we want to have informed discussions around that. Like Michelle said before, it's like some of our students might have some, you know, response behaviors like yelling out no. That's, you know, understanding that students, that's not them refusing to do something or being obstinate, or being defiant, that's a cry like, I need help. Those are things that within the program we have supports around. I think it's really specific when we have the conversations with the applications and there's questions around behavior. We want to understand, what is the function, what is happening. Does the school have any strategies? Does the team have any strategies? Is the child having these behaviors because they might not have the right supports? We are really mindful of asking those questions and then understanding what the supports of our program are, if that could be a good level of support. And ultimately, our goal is to place children into a classroom we know that the supports are going to work for them. If they need more, we will have conversations around that, because part of it too is, and Michelle's talked about this before, sometimes students aren't ready for an academic program in a community school and might need different or more supports. We've had many students have different placements and then reapply to the Horizon or Nest program later on, and it is the right level of support for them. So we are in constant conversations with families about that. So, that's one of the things that we'll often say to families is, reapply, or we think that the supports of our program might not be at the right level of support at this time.
All right. Now, thank you. The next question that we have here in the chat is, if we have previously applied for our child for both programs and didn't hear from anyone in the past year, do we reapply again?
You could just email asdprograms@schools.nyc.gov. My name is Michelle Metzler. You can address it to me. I will respond. We will figure out where your application is and we will get back to you. But please include your child's name, and if you have their OSIS number, it makes it much easier for us to find the application.
Great. And then here's a question about placement of Nest programming. This program sounds like it should exist in the New York City specialized high schools. Most specialized high schools are unable or unwilling, to provide these services. Is there any plan to include Nest programs or Nest services at any of the specialized high schools?
So we really want to focus this presentation on the application and overview, or the application process and the overview of the program supports. We are always reviewing where we can expand programs, where we need programs. And so there isn't a school that isn't considered, but that's all that's really the extent of what I know about specialized program high schools, right? We are looking to continue our supports. Students with IEPs can attend and should be attending and be supported at those schools. But for our programs, we focus on the schools where the programs are existing right now.
Thank you, Michelle. Does it carry more weight if a teacher applies for a student or offers a recommendation submitted along with the application?
No.
No.
We appreciate the information from teachers and families, but no. We really want to hear about the student and learn about the student. So a teacher recommendation is helpful for us to look at, but it is not going to carry more weight.
Can the ASD team be put in contact with the child's former teacher when making determinations, or is it just limited to current staff? It's a good question.
That is a great question. Absolutely. Our team becomes detectives. If there's information that is proving to support a student, we want to understand that. Some teachers, and we'll see this in schools, some students relate better to one teacher. We'll often not even just limit it to the teacher as a point of reference, or past or former teachers, but also speech pathologists, OTs, SIA teachers, any walk of life, even private practitioners. We want to get the information that is going to help us make a determination and help support a child.
If the student's last evaluation is outdated since starting school, should you include it or wait to be asked for a new evaluation? I assume when applying.
So outdated, I know that in the past, we had always asked for testing within a year. Since the pandemic, we recognize that we need more information, more data points, because our lens is looking at students in a different way, given the impact of the pandemic. So we are looking at the history of the student as well. We are not necessarily requesting updated testing within a year for each student. So that being said, I would encourage you to apply with the information you have now if you're going to apply to programs. And then if additional testing is needed, we will work with you. Our team will speak with you, and then we'll work with the IEP team to make sure that we request the testing that's needed.
Right. Excuse me. Do these programs begin at kindergarten or first grade?
Kindergarten. They're
And
So we have K to 12 programs for Horizon and Nest, and we have pre-K programs as well.
okay. And for Nest students applying to high school, do you only need to rank the Nest programs?
You can rank non-Nest programs if your child has interest in a non-Nest program. Say that the high school has a special program, a certain track that your child would be interested in, technology or maybe media, or media production. You can rank any of those schools, and you can rank Nest schools within your choices.
Good to know. Yes, and if a student is, when would you know if the student is selected for a Horizon or Nest program in kindergarten? Would it be a part of the turning 5 normal notification dates, timelines?
Yes, you answered the question for us. Yes, thank you.
Can you provide any update on the efforts to expand the programs?
We're always considering expansion where it's needed. So that is always a work in progress.
All right. And regarding middle school and high school application school rankings, if your child is not currently in a Nest program or a Horizon program, should the application include those schools as well? How would the ranking be done? Because it's very confusing.
So if your child is not in an ASD Nest or Horizon program currently, you won't be able to rank Nest or Horizon programs on your application. You would be able to rank those schools, just not the Nest or the Horizon program on your application. What you need to do to be considered for a middle or high school placement is to submit the application, which is what we went through the application process here. We would like you to submit the application. And if you submit it now, then our team will have the opportunity to talk you through the process and the next steps.
All right. And do people submitting private evaluations have more chances to have a spot than ones using the DOE, which is conducting the evaluations later in the year?
No.
Okay. I've already done my application. They responded really quickly, and now I'm waiting. I've been waiting about 3 weeks. Is there an approximate time for me to learn more on a decision?
It depends, because it would depend on if we needed to get updated evaluations, we would be working on that. If we're getting in contact with your child's current school or past school or related service providers, sometimes that does take some time. So it really depends. I would encourage you to reach out to your point of contact. And if you are struggling to get in contact with them, you can always use the ASD programs at schools.nyc.gov, and we will respond. Somebody is looking at that inbox, just to give you an idea. Someone is reviewing that inbox daily and throughout the day. So it doesn't just go there and land there. We do nothing with it. We receive it and we will respond.
Question, getting some questions about IK. I believe that's intensive kindergarten. Is that correct?
Yes.
Or intensive nest? Yes. Can you talk more about that and what the student profile might be?
Sure. Kate, do you want to take this one away?
Sure. So the intensive kindergarten program is a 6 to 1 to 2 program. Currently, we have it in 3 program schools throughout the city. They are in Nest programs. Typically, the profile for a student in the IK program who would benefit from that would be a student that has the cognitive and academic skills that are, showing at or above grade level, but there's a maturity piece. There's some of the language is still developing. There's a part of when we review an application, many times we'll see that this is a child who needs more support and could benefit from some, has a Nest profile, but would benefit from more specific supports. And the intensive kindergarten provides that. And our hope is that the kindergarten year, the first year of the IK program, students are learning those focusing skills and small group work and attending and also social communication. And then for the following year, they would be integrated like right into a Nest kindergarten class.
Thank you. Do you have a list of those schools by chance? I think there are only 3, right? Is that what you said?
PS 112 in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
PS 165 in Queens. And PS 682 in Brooklyn.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Again, I just want to make sure that families understand that they need to submit the application through the centralized process so we're able to review the information and the testing. If you reach out directly to the schools, they will likely suggest that you contact us. So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
No, thank you. And it's a great reminder. I mean, I could see where that would go. Barrage of emails. There is the question, will there be a session on the iRead program and early literacy program? We do not have a webinars currently set up with the Department of Education to cover these topics. I don't know if they do already in other platforms or within their own. That's something that you could do by inquiring with the Office of Special Education, unless Michelle knows or one of our presenters knows.
So, I mean, you can always reach out for more information to the special education inbox, and they'll be able to direct you to the right folks if you have questions. And I can tell you the email is specialeducation@schools.nyc.gov, just to make sure that everybody has that.
All right. A colleague of mine is on and is asking, if a student was found eligible and a student lived in District 15 and there was only 1 seat available in District 15 for that grade, but many more seats in other districts, would a family have the opportunity to choose between the 2 different placements or at least go to the placement nearest their home?
That is really specific.
Very specific.
And I'm not sure that I can answer, or Kate or I could answer that without maybe more information. So that is a time you can reach out to us at the Asd Programs inbox, and we will follow up with you. Great.
All right. Let's going through. All right. I am going to jump over back to the Q&A questions. I believe how do you distinguish between intensive K candidates and Horizon candidates? This is a little bit different from what was asked earlier.
I would go back to just the review of the clinical record and information that we have. I think part of it is that students for IK typically have or always have a clinical profile in regard to their cognition and academics that leans more towards the Nest program. So, the pieces that's different about Horizon is that it is a different level of support. It's a program that often has the teachers that understand how to support students with autism. Students are in that program to work on the academics and social and emotional as well.
And a fellow advocate, can a student in a 12 to 1-to-1 D75 program apply for the Asd Horizon program? And would the supports for that program be sufficient?
Depends on the student's needs.
Yeah.
But they should definitely apply if the family and the parents believe that the student could be supported in a Horizon program, they should definitely apply.
Great, thank you. There's so many questions on the intensive K, but we've already covered them, so we're good. When can you apply for Nest when you were in Horizon? I believe you said that was a rolling deadline?
Yeah, and I would encourage if you are in a Horizon program and considering applying for a Nest program, I would encourage you to speak with your current teachers and related service providers and then apply to the program because they'll be able to support you in thinking through whether the Nest program is going to offer the correct level of support for your child.
Great. And are there any locations in Staten Island?
For both Nest and Horizon?
It wasn't specific, but I was doing either one, yes.
So we have programs in all boroughs, both Nest and Horizon.
Okay. And this has been really helpful, this information, so thank you. I would really like to have similar training on District 75 programs more broadly. I know the types of programs and students vary greatly, so this would be really helpful. Thank you so much for that comment. We will definitely look into hosting more District 75 programs, but we appreciate your telling us. Going back to the chat, we have about 4 or 5 more minutes. I want to be respectful and mindful of everyone's time. So if we didn't get to them, please be sure to contact the Asd Programs at schools.nyc.gov email. We're going to try and do a lightning round as best as possible. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your questions in advance. The AIMS program with District 75 will be next Wednesday at 10:30. You can find that information on our calendar. I'll include that in our follow-up email as well. If you're interested, for our Spanish-speaking parents, if you're interested in the Turning 5 process or the kindergarten IEP, we will be presenting with our colleagues at Advocates for Children on Monday and Tuesday to discuss both of those topics. So that will be in Spanish only, but here I will continue with this lightning round and then let everyone go. So let's see. Current kindergarten and Horizon meeting all Nest criteria except for speech, can speak sentences. This is very specific. I would suggest that you contact the Asd Programs email. How many do you have? What is the IQ score the program will consider? Do you have an IQ score that's like it's more comprehensive than that?
That's correct.
When will it be contacted by the IEP teams? I can email this question. I would email that question. When will you be contacted by the IEP teams? Because I think that depends on each IEP team. Does the IEP team or the Turning 5 team do the testing in order to gain entry? Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. I
They
mean,
both is it the same team, the Turning 5 and the IEP team here in this case, or?
So Turning 5 would be students entering kindergarten. So that could be the students' school that they're going to. It could be a CSE. It could be a number of different IEP teams. The IEP team could relate to a child who is school age and already attending school. So it's the same group of folks, essentially, yes.
If a Nest student requires sets a year after being admitted to Nest, would the assigned sets provider be trained in Nest, and how soon would that happen?
So that's a really specific question related to the student and the school. So if you want to follow up with that question, you're welcome to email us, and we are happy to give you a call to talk it through.
Great, thank you. All right, last question of the day. Who's got it? Yeah, we'll go with this one. When a high school student is either in Nest or Horizon, would they get a regular high school diploma, in parentheses, Regents?
Yes, students, because it's a standard assessment program, students would in Nest and Horizon would be eligible to take the Regents. There are other options for pathways to graduation that sometimes happen for some students that might need more support. On the flip side, also students who are in Nest or Horizon could go into more challenging AP classes with support, and that's really done at a really specific student level when that's deemed appropriate.
Okay. All right, well, it's 12 o'clock on the dot. I apologize if we didn't get to all of the questions. I see that we have many questions still that remain unanswered. Please contact the ASD programs at schools.nyc.gov. We appreciate your patience and so many questions. Clearly, there's so much interest in trying to understand these two programs, so we appreciate that. And we certainly appreciate our presenters for making the time to take all of your questions and do a presentation on it today. So thank you so much, Kate and Michelle. We appreciate it. And yes, I'll see you in January, Michelle, for ACEs, yes?
Yes, you will. Great.
Yes, and Kate, thank you so much. I will be sure to include this information. We will have this PowerPoint available in Spanish by the time I send the follow-up, so no worries there. And if you need additional support or information, you can always contact me at Synergia, or you can contact our intake line. I'll provide that information in the follow-up email. I'm just going to activate a quick survey. Thank you so much for everything, everyone. And yes, have a great day and enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And I'll stay on in case anybody has any questions for Synergia or that I can answer. But yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks
You
so
too.
much. Be well.